Before we start the video, I would like to thank Messi577, Anna Rowland, and Ideas Utes for subscribing to the channel. In the game Mouthwashing, Daisuke is the intern to the experienced mechanic Swansea. He's around his early 20s and was a last-minute addition to the Tulpa to learn the ins and outs of being a mechanic. His personality is of a typical young man. He's carefree, optimistic, and a bit airheaded. He mentions that he likes parties, drinking, and hot babes. He doesn't have much to do with the main plot, but his story is very significant and relatable. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Join me today as my intern as we discuss Daisuke from Mouthwashing. Daisuke's character design is based off of Ryosuke Kawashima from the Japanese horror film Kairo. Although when I first saw him, I immediately thought of Yosuke from Persona 4, which is ironic because they're quite similar in personality, where Yosuke is kind of like a younger version of Daisuke. He's known to wear his pink hibiscus shirt that represents friendship and all different kinds of love, not just romantic. This definitely applies to Daisuke as he has a father-like son relationship with Swansea and a younger sibling dynamic with Anya. Now that we've discussed Daisuke's character inspirations, let's get started on his analysis. 7 days before the crash. We start with Anya finishing off her psych evaluation on Curly. He gives him a note from Swansea that reads quite aggressively. She mentions how Daisuke's responses are a bit too enthusiastic and asks if she should be concerned. Daisuke is an upbeat person, but it seems like he's trying to mask his true feelings by trying to sound extra happy to be there. He's seemingly afraid to open up about how he really feels, maybe out of embarrassment or fear of sounding ungrateful, being his first job, surrounded by people who've been working for a while. Hurley goes to the utility room and finds Daisuke has gotten himself stuck in the emergency phone while trying to fix a vent. Swansea scolds him and tells Curly he would have gotten the axe himself, but everything has to go through the captain. Hurley grabs the axe and frees Daisuke. Swansea berates him, telling him the vents are off limits unless he wants to be impaled, electrocuted, and cooked. Daisuke replies that Swansea wouldn't be able to fix it due to his size. Swansea asks for the axe. We can see that Daisuke is a hard-working guy just trying his best. He may make mistakes, but he does want to learn. It's inevitable that Daisuke and Swansea would clash, being that their personalities are total opposites. Daisuke doesn't really think before he speaks, so the things he says to Swansea, he doesn't realise that he's actually offending him. 6 days before the crash. The crew throw a surprise birthday party for Curly. Once he makes the cake, he announces that after this job, they're all going to be let go by the company. Daisuke goes silent as the mood sours. When Jimmy starts yelling at Curly, he mentions how Daisuke would be fine as he still lives with his parents. I imagine this would feel very awkward for Daisuke. Even though Jimmy is being an asshole, admittedly he isn't wrong about how Daisuke would be okay after this job. Either he or his parents would likely find him somewhere else to work, whereas everyone else seems to be on their own or have people that they need support and would likely struggle. Daisuke would likely feel guilty for the rest of them for not having to worry about his future, at least in the short term, and I'd imagine that the guilt amplified when Jimmy started saying it out loud during his rant. 2 months after the crash. Group are discussing whether to open the cargo hold to see if it can help with their survival. Daisuke wants to open it, seemingly more curious as to what's inside. Whilst Jimmy is looking for the code scanner, he talks to Daisuke and asks about this food supply. He says there's only 4 months left. Jimmy then asks about the way Swansea treats him during his internship. Daisuke acknowledges that Swansea is cranky. Also, with his experience, he's very good at his job, and Daisuke always praises him for how good he is. When Jimmy gets the code scanner, Daisuke hopes for spare parts so that he and Swansea can repair the ship. Daisuke, being an optimistic person, is trying to stay hopeful that they'll be rescued. Being a young person, the thought of death, even in the worst situation, is the last thing that they would think about. He was more thinking about being famous than running out of air or food. I'd also imagine that staying positive is a way to hide how he's really feeling. This is his first job, and it has put him in immense danger, which would likely make him feel fear and regret. This is his first job, and it has put him in immense danger, which would likely make him feel fear and regret. Despite his fear, it's nice to see his respect for Swansea doesn't change when he's talking to someone else about him. Other people meet Swansea, like the player for example, and I'd imagine that they take an immediate dislike to him and see him as a bit of an asshole. But Daisuke has been working closely with Swansea for the past 4 months. Daisuke genuinely wants to learn and one day be as good as Swansea. He recognises his experience and knows he's somebody worth listening to. The crew open the cargo hold and discover they've been shipping mouthwash the entire time. When their hope for survival diminishes, Swansea starts to drink the mouthwash. He turns to Daisuke and says he's going to teach him how to drink like a man. 4 months after the crash, we find Daisuke lying on the floor, drunk on mouthwash. He tells Jimmy that his mum found him the internship as she considered him a slacker. In reality, he was just unsure what he wanted to be and refers to himself as a total screw-up. He hopes that she doesn't blame herself for putting him in the internship and asks Jimmy to take the mouthwash away. The scene reveals the facade of Daisuke's upbeat personality. He's been hoping that they'd be rescued, in denial that they were completely doomed, but now the mask has dropped, as he's come to terms with their situation. When he starts drinking, the depression comes out, as he reveals why he was on the internship. It outlines his low confidence, thinking he'll mess up with everything he attempts, which made him hesitate to find what he wanted to do in the first place. I'm sure this scene resonates with a lot of young people today. We're told by the older generation that we're lazy for not working hard enough to be able to live independently, when in reality, we are dealing with the increased pricing in housing, rent, food, higher education, and the shortage of jobs have made it difficult to be motivated to work hard when we know that it won't lead towards anything. It can make young people more indecisive with their career choices, with the potential that the likeliness to succeed is even smaller than it used to be. 5 months after the crash, Daisuke starts yelling that Anya has gotten stuck in the medical room. He brings Jimmy to the door and tries to help Anya open it. Anya eventually admits that the door isn't stuck and starts monologuing something cryptic that Daisuke doesn't understand. Jimmy asks if there's another way into the medical room. Daisuke replies that there's a vent in utility, but Swansea says that it's off limits and has been guarding the door the entire time. I imagine Daisuke was very scared for Anya as they had gotten close from playing games together and Anya would always get annoyed that Daisuke would always get lucky. The issue is that Daisuke doesn't know the real reason that Anya has locked herself away. He'd only think it was related to their current situation. Worried that Anya will do something extreme, Daisuke and Jimmy go to Swansea and try to convince him to let them inside. And even in an extremely drunk state, Swansea still refuses to let them in. Jimmy says they're going to have to knock him out with a strong cocktail, and assures Daisuke that he won't remember anything. While making the cocktail, they find out they've run out of sweetener. Daisuke awkwardly mentions that he may or may not have some amongst his stuff. Jimmy finds it and uses them to finish the cocktail. They give Swansea the cocktail and he rips into Daisuke about his skills as a mechanic, thinking that his failure will help him grow, but in reality, it won't. He drinks the cocktail and collapses. Daisuke panics that they've killed him. Jimmy is nonchalant, saying he'll be fine. They enter utility and find that there's no foam at all. They find that one of the cryo-chamber pods has survived the crash. Daisuke wonders how Swansea cleaned the foam, but Jimmy theorises that Swansea was lying to them all this time, so that he could wait for everyone else to die and get into the pod himself. Daisuke doesn't believe this, thinking Swansea would never do anything like that. They see the vent has visible sparks and exposed wires coming out. Jimmy says it could be collapsed in places. He says that Daisuke will be able to fit, and he shows reluctance by bringing up Swansea's warning again. Jimmy manipulates Daisuke, saying how proud Swansea would be for saving everyone. With this, Daisuke enters the vent and we immediately hear him screaming in pain. He makes it through, and we hear him yelling at Anya. What did you do? Daisuke's naivety and insecurity is on full display here. He agrees on giving Swansea an extremely strong cocktail, not seeing suspicion that Swansea would supposedly not remember anything when he wakes up. He does feel guilty when Swansea is knocked out, worrying that they potentially killed him. However, a strength of Daisuke's is that he's strong about his beliefs. When Jimmy accuses Swansea of keeping the cryopod for himself, Daisuke defends him, believing that he would never do that. Unfortunately, Jimmy is able to appeal to his insecurities and convinces him to go into the vent. He says how he will be praised for saving everyone, just to avoid going into the vent himself. Jimmy will take Swansea's advice seriously regarding his own life, but not for Daisuke's. With that, Daisuke doesn't defend himself and ends up being impaled, electrocuted, and cooked, just as Swansea said. At this point, Anya has already taken her own life, so seeing the shock of her body at her own hand must be heartbreaking for him. 8 hours until judgment. Daisuke is lying down, covered in blood and in terrible pain, yet all he can do is apologize. Swansea says to use the extra disinfectant they found earlier, but Jimmy mentioned something about a cocktail which neither Swansea nor the player would know about at this point. Jimmy ends up grabbing mouthwash and pouring it onto Daisuke, who immediately howls in pain as we hear it burning into his wounds. 6 hours until judgment. 2 hours later, Daisuke is still in tremendous pain, and the bleeding won't stop. Swansea is sitting over Daisuke, holding the axe in his hand, telling him to calm down. He says he thought Daisuke was stupid, calling him a useless ray of sunshine. He says he's not the smartest or the most ambitious, just a good kid trying his best. Swansea says he could have taught him a lot, and then to close his eyes. The camera pans out as we see Swansea lift the axe above Daisuke's head, bringing it down, ending his suffering. Daisuke has been in pain for at least 2 hours, and with everything they can think to try and save him, the only real option left was to put him out of his misery. There were no painkillers left, and Anya had taken them all, so there was really nothing else they could do. Even whilst dying, Daisuke is continuously apologizing, as he thinks he's causing them trouble by being severely injured. He did succeed in unlocking the medical room door, but still believes in his head that he's messed up somehow. Swansea gives Daisuke a very sweet and heartbreaking speech on how he really feels about him. He understands that despite his mistakes, Daisuke was trying his best the whole time, and despite being pushed into it by his mother. Not that his mother's at fault, as she didn't want him to be sitting at home doing nothing. Another thing to mention is that when Swansea is given his speech to Daisuke, we get the feeling that he knew what Swansea was going to do, as he starts panicking about dying in that moment, which you can tell by how his breathing rapidly increases, and you can see his feet moving more as Swansea lifts the axe before bringing it down on him. Daisuke's worst fears have come true. Most young people don't think about dying at such a young age as they believe they've got a lot of time left. It's why they can be more reckless with certain aspects of their lives, even if they think it won't damage them, such as eating unhealthily more often than they should, having the volume too high when listening to music, or hurting their necks when they're on their phones or playing games. Maybe in some delusion he thought he wouldn't get hurt when he climbed through the vent. He was thinking more of the aftermath of the praise and thanks after he saved Anya and Curly. But the reality sunk in when Swansea was holding the axe above him. He panicked as he came to terms that these were his final moments. He wanted to do more with his life, experiment, make mistakes, and find his passion. Just an innocent young lad that ended up with an axe in his face. Daisuke is a very sweet character who ended up being the victim of his own insecurities. Jimmy took advantage of this, making himself authority and sending him to his death just to avoid his own. Daisuke is someone who is reluctant to jump into the deep end in fear of messing things up for other people. He tried to mask this with an almost over-the-top positive attitude that Anya mentions at the beginning of the game to hide his fear of failure. Personally, his death was the saddest for me, as his life was cut short, without any idea of what was really going on around him. He put his trust into Jimmy as he called himself the captain and was the so-called adult in the situation. But all that Jimmy wanted was the feeling of control without the experience. He knew Daisuke trusted him and sent him to his death. That is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. The reason I chose to do Daisuke is because I find his story very relatable, as I'm around the same age as him myself. And I'll be honest, throughout the early years of my adulthood, I have been feeling quite lost and worried that I'm running out of time despite how young I am. And I do to get nervous jumping into new things at like the risk of failing, um, or being judged by other people. From an outside perspective, it can probably be seen that like, oh, I'm not doing anything useful or something because I haven't gone to uni or I work part time for minimum wage. But like like it is just me sort of delaying what I want to do to make sure that what I want to do is to make sure I'm 100% sure of what I want to do. Like, there's a lot of pressure in young people as we feel that we have to find ourselves when some of us still haven't discovered ourselves by this age. And, like, for me, I quite strongly would like to be a writer. Like, that's probably why I built the courage to start my channel because I love talking about my favorite games, my favorite shows, and like messaging and lore behind it, what you can learn from it and grow, that sort of thing. And just kind of want to share it with other people who love that sort of thing too, and maybe make connections, maybe collab with other creators or something if anyone would be interested. And I'm even writing my own story, but I won't give any details about it. It's a secret for the time being. So that's why I do this. Writing scripts helps, improve my craft and also gain an audience who's interested in my work. But yeah, that's it. So my next video will be on Swansea, of course. Daisuke and Swansea, the pair that go together. So if you enjoy, please subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love feedback, good and bad. It'll help me improve. And I will see you in the near but probably far future.